Hi dear students, in the last class we had seen the invention of the pendulum clock and some details about the mechanical clocks. Today we will continue with the first clocks and their uses. Page number 19. The first clocks were nearly always placed on church or bell towers so that everybody could see or at least hear them in the town. They were called turret clocks. So the first clocks, they were placed on the church or the bell towers, on the top of the church or the bell towers. And what is the purpose of placing the clocks on the church or the bell towers? So that everybody could see or at least hear them in the town. That was the reason why the early clocks, they were placed on the top of the building. And such kind of clocks, they were called turret clocks. If you take page number 89, there one picture is given of turret clocks. They were placed on the top of the building so that people could easily see or at least hear them. They were not of much use when they were out of sight or earshot for those people who wanted to move about and still know the time. So the people, those who were living in the town, for them it was very useful, but the people, those who wanted to move about and still know the time, for them these kinds of clocks were not that much useful. Why? Because once they leave the town, they could not hear the sound or they couldn't see the clock, so that they were not able to know the time. So the people, those who used to travel different places, town to town, for them these clocks, they were not that much useful. But for the people, those who were living inside the city, for them it was useful. However, despite their crude working, they managed to work for many years, although they did not always tell the correct time. Crude working means not accurate. Even though these clocks, they were not working in an accurate manner, then also it worked for many years. People depended on such a kind of clocks for many years, and they did not, such kind of clocks, they did not always tell the correct time. Then the next paragraph. The word clock or clock, as it was called in the Middle English, goes back to this time. It goes back to the 13th century, and now we spell C-L-O-C-K, but in the Middle English they used to spell C-L-O-K, and it was taken from the French word cloche, which means a bell. So the word clock, it came from the French word cloche, because the upper class Englishmen, they used to speak French, so they borrowed many French words. Bells were therefore associated with clocks in those early days of mechanical timeskeeping. In fact, even before mechanical clocks existed, church and monasteries rang bells to tell the common folk that it was time for prayers. So the word meaning of cloche, what is that? Bell. So since the machine was associated with the bell, they gave the name clock to these new mechanical clocks. Bells were therefore associated with clocks in those early days. Bell and clocks, they were both associated. And these early timekeeping machines, they were not used to tell the exact time, but it was to alert somebody or it was to tell someone it is the time for prayer. So it was just a bell. And in fact, even before the mechanical clocks existed, church and monasteries rang bells to tell the common folk. The common folk means the common people. From the monasteries and the church, they used to tell the people it is the time for prayer through ringing the bells. The devotees would stop all their activities to say their prayers. From monasteries and other religious houses, the monks, they used to ring the bell so that the devotees or the people, the common folk, they came to know that it is the time for prayer and they used to pray. So before the invention of mechanical clock, in monasteries and religious houses, they used to bell. So from this paragraph you can understand that the word clock, it comes from French word clocher, and the clocher, the word clocher means bell. Bell and the early timekeeping machines, they were associated. That is why for the new timekeeping machine they gave the name clock. And before the invention of the mechanical clock in monasteries, they used to ring the bell in order to indicate that that was the time for prayer. And in the next paragraph we will see some of the prayers there in the monasteries. Some of these prayers for which bells were rung were called sects and nuns. These terms were taken from Latin and meant the 6th hour and the 9th hour prayer. So sects and nuns, two types of prayers were there in the monasteries, and these two words are taken from the Latin word. Sects means 6th hour and nuns means 9th hour. When prayers were said, so the ringing of the prayer bells also indicated the time. So 6th hour they used to ring the bell, so that indicated the time to the common people. And the 9th hour also they used to ring the bell, and that also indicated the time for the common people. And they stopped their activities and they just said the prayer. So two types of prayer, sects and nuns, 6th hourly prayer and 9th hourly prayer. And at the time of 6th hourly prayer or the 9th hourly prayer, they used to ring the bell and people could easily understand the time. And the next paragraph, even when mechanical clocks with the dials and hour hands were made, they struck the hours and were used in the same way as prayer bells. So earlier we had seen that the early mechanical clocks, they were not having the hands or dial, but later the new mechanical clocks, they made with the hands and dials, and they used to strike the hours. Then also, what was the purpose of these bells? The purpose of these bells were just like the prayer bells. They struck the hours and were used in the same way as prayer bell. So the new timekeeping machine, it was associated with bells. That is the reason it got the name clock. Why? The word clock comes from French word cloche, which means bell. And now, so it is little wonder that all timekeepers were called clocks or cloche. So that is the reason why all the timekeeping machines were called clocks. Why? Because the mechanical clocks, even though it was made with the hands or dials, it used in the same way as prayer bells. That is the reason these all timekeeping machines, they were called clocks. The French themselves, strangely enough, call a clock horloge, which has nothing to do with the bell, but it indicates hours. But the French people, they do not call clock cloche. Instead of that, they call clock as horloge. Horloge means hours. So for the Frenchmen, they did not take the word cloche as clock, but they took the word horloge as the name for the timekeeping machine. Why? The meaning is hours. And for the Englishmen, they took cloche, the French word cloche, as the name for the new timekeeping machine. But for the French, they took horloge as the name for the new timekeeping machine. The reason is that in England, the timekeeping machine, it was associated with the bell. That was the reason they took the word cloche or clock as the name of the timekeeping machine. And the next paragraph. From the beginning, these clocks were designed to tell the time by dividing the day into 24 hours. So from the beginning onwards, the clocks, they were divided into 24 hours. And such a kind of division, it was based on the ancient Egyptian time division of one day. And in an ancient Egyptian time division, they divided time into 24 equal parts or 24 equal hours. So the division of time into 24 equal hours, it was based on the ancient Egyptian timekeeping system. The hours were further divided into two lots of 12 hours each for every day, that is 2 hours of daytime and 12 hours night. So first it was 24 hours, then it was divided into two lots. First 12 hours for daytime and the next 12 hours for night time. Then however, we really do not know why the divisions fell in the middle of the day and the night falling afternoon and after midnight. And we do not know what is the reason why they divided the time in the middle of the day. Then people had further divided each hour into 60 minutes and each minute into 60 seconds. The figure 60 was probably taken from the ancient Babylon counting system, which used 60 in much the same way as we use 10. So then the first division, it was 24 hours, then they divided two lots, 12 hours each. Then again the division was there. They divided, people divided 60 minutes, then the 60 minutes, it was divided into 1 minute, divided into 60 seconds, and it was based on the ancient Babylonian counting system. And they used to count 60 as a complete number. So that is the reason when people divided the time, they divided time into 60 minutes and 60 seconds. And then, however, the earlier mechanical clocks did not bother about making smaller divisions for minutes on their dials or using a minute hand. This was just as well as considering that they were not very accurate anyway. And in early timekeeping machines, there were no minute hands, and the people, they were not bothered about marking smaller divisions or the minute hands. And the reason is that these mechanical clocks were not giving proper time or accurate time. So I hope that it is clear. And in today's class we had seen about the clocks and the use of clocks, and the word, the clock, it comes from the French word cloche. And what is the reason? Because the French word, it is associated with the bell. Because in England, these early timekeeping machines, they used to ring bell in order to call the people for prayer. So the bell and the cloche are connected. That is why England took the word clock as the name for the timekeeping machine. But in France, they took the word horloge as the name for the timekeeping machine, and the meaning of horloge is hours. And then we had seen the division of a day into 12 hours. Then again there is a division of two lots, 12 hours each. And again the minutes, 60 minutes. Again the 1 hour is divided into 60 minutes. Then 1 minute divided into 60 seconds. Hope that it is clear to you. And if there is any doubts, you may please contact. Thank you. Have a nice day.